quite the intro there. That new intro is like it's got a whole movie theme going to it. I love it. My team works so hard on that. That intro is a lot of video of us at our first gutter summit this past year, and so this year, just this past 2 months ago. So a lot of fun there. And what we didn't really touch on at the gutter summit was safety. And so, hey, you guys know me, Grant Hubbard here with Gutter Growth. I have Kevin Hargis, Sarah Vandermeer, and extra special guest today, Michael Draper from the Expert Safety Services. So thank you all so much for joining me. You know why we're here. You know why we're bringing it back to the forefront. This is a 6-part safety series. This is session number 3, and let's get right into it. Let me just start by saying, Sarah and Kevin, it's great to see you again. We built some good momentum, and combined between the last 2 podcasts, I want to say there's around 6,000 people viewing those. So it's really important that we're getting out in front of people about safety. And Michael, they were both bringing your name up, and like, we got to talk with Mr. Draper here, because apparently you're doing all this wonderful stuff in the safety world, and I want to know more about it. We want to make sure that everybody in our collective construction services, home services, first off, knows how to be safe. So thank you for joining us and lending your expertise to us for this conversation.
Yeah, glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Sarah, where do we start? We last talked a little bit about some of the myths, and I think we talked a little bit about how you don't have to do this or that because of OSHA or this or that. And then me and Kevin jumped on, and we kind of had the beginning of the conversation about why safety is such a there's a myth around safety being such a difficult topic, and it really slows down. It can have an opportunity to really slow down your production, right? And we have to really weigh those odds with being safe and getting a lot of work done so we can be profitable. Where should we go next? What do you think? I'm going to put the ball in your court.
Well, I think since Michael is here, this is the perfect opportunity to talk about how easy it is to adopt safety into your work culture through software, through equipment, through all these things that can really make things uniform and straightforward, so you have the great documentation and it doesn't take a whole lot of extra in order to do it. And I feel like Michael is such an asset when it comes to that, because I know I actually use his software, which is amazing. I'll let him tell you a little bit about it, but it makes, for me, compliance and training really simple and really straightforward.
Awesome. So what do you have to offer along those lines, Michael?
Yeah, so let's touch on your question first, because while I mean, it is true that, and you're not unique in the fact that you're weighing production profitability against safety. I mean, everybody is doing that, right? Budgets, schedules, they're all real, and they're maybe even more real in a construction environment, right? Because they have deadlines to meet, they have schedules, they have budgets, they have to hit them. And so that's always there. But I think the reality is that oftentimes the contractor, and I was a mobile contractor for years. So when we implemented safety and we educated our customer as to why we were doing things the way we were doing it, we didn't have even problems charging more for it, right? We weren't the low-cost leader. So yeah, it's going to be challenging to be the low-cost leader and be safety compliant. Absolutely. But here's the thing. I mean, and this is kind of the reason we're here, right? It doesn't matter what OSHA says. I say this, and I start off every class like that, because that really misses the point. That means that we're just going to follow a set of rules so that we can be compliant. But at the end of the day, OSHA didn't apply to even your guys' colleague, David, because he was a single operator, right? He didn't have to follow OSHA guidelines. But electricity worked just the same, whether you were a sole proprietor or you were an employee, right?
Isn't that the truth?
Yep. Yeah. Gravity works the same, whether you're an employee or you're a sole proprietor. So really, I don't like to get lost in what OSHA tells us to do, because everybody starts getting an attitude. Oh, I'm not, screw OSHA. I don't even want to listen to what they tell me. They don't have any right to tell me anything. Okay, they don't then, but gravity still works, man.
Yeah.
Every time.
Yep.
Yeah, the software that Sarah's alluding to is, what we've seen that there were, everybody gets told what they need to do, but there really wasn't a lot of collective resources around, what that was. So, we started off honestly with an app that was an automated job hazard analysis. And, when you're building software and apps, no one's ever happy with what you built there. It'd be really cool if it did this, and it'd be cool if it did this, and it never ends. Right. And so it's a full-fledged software. It runs your whole safety program. It's somewhat automated at this point. We have a thing called autopilot now, where you tell the program what your people are doing in the field, and it'll line out your weekly safety meetings. It'll line out your trainings that you need for you. And all that. So, it's pretty impressive. We've worked at it a long time. We have, I don't even know how many thousands and thousands and thousands of hundreds of thousands of dollars in it at this point. Yep. But it's a pretty all-inclusive safety program. So
where do people find this?
expertsafetyservices.com. And right now, anyway, you can find it under the Safety Advocate program. So we're actually splitting our companies as of the first of the year. Expert Safety Services, Safety Advocate, and then our anchor company. They'll all be separate. They've kind of morphed into their own divisions and own companies, and so we felt the need to separate them. But you'll still be able to access it from Expert Safety Services.
And I will say it's just been such a time savings for us, because I think as owners, we know that safety is important. As I mentioned in the previous podcast, it's part of our core values. It's, part of fellowship and taking care of each other.
Yeah.
And sometimes we don't even know exactly what to train on. Or we should have ladder safety. That seems like an obvious one, but what about this or what about that? And I feel like having something like Safety Advocate, where it breaks it all down for you, down to your weekly meetings, everything. I didn't even know before Safety Advocate that cold exhaustion was a thing. I knew heat was a problem. I had no idea that cold exhaustion was also a problem. And so it kind of introduced, mind you, I'm in Texas, so it doesn't get that cold.
Right.
But still, it's just something that we hadn't really thought about before. And so just the fact that it can give you a nice road work really helps to encompass, that wide breadth of safety that is really important on your day-to-day. And not only that, but because it's app friendly, a lot of times when we have rain days and we get rained out because we do window cleaning, or even for Christmas for that matter, you can't do it in bad weather. Guess what we're having our people do? They go on Safety Advocate. They have to get their renewals for their certificates every year. It comes with actual certificates and certifications. And that way my people can get paid. We have training. Yeah. We don't fall behind. So it's just really great on so many levels. I'm sorry to brag on you, Michael. I
like that.
I appreciate it. And the thing is that what we tell everyone all the time is, and we weigh it in the system. It's got in the program, it rates your employees. So it's gamified. It gives the employees a ranking in the company. But the thing is that the weekly safety meetings in the program actually weigh heavier than annual training. And the reason is because we don't want people to be annually trained and then just go out and forget about it for 12 months, right? It's not just a compliance-right checkbox that people do. So the weekly safety meetings, they're really just designed. They're not, some people say, well, I didn't learn anything in that weekly safety meeting. I already knew that. Good. That's what we wanted. We tried to get in your head for 2 to 3 minutes and just get you back aware of what you already know, right? I ain't trying to teach you anything. I'm trying to get in your head because you just had a fight with your girlfriend. You just had a fight with your wife and that. Now you're out on a ladder and I want you to think for a minute. Right.
Yep.
And that's the whole point of it. So, it's a nice, obviously I'm going to say it's a nice program. It's my program, but it's nice to hear the accolades coming from users as well.
That's great. I'm really excited. Kevin, I'm about to come to you. I'm really excited to learn a little bit more about this. When we have some time, Michael, can you give me a walkthrough offline, set that up with
Sure.
you? I'd love to see it. And then we could talk about how, we can bring people to it, because I think that's really important. That's going to be huge. Second of all, you should think about, I'll just offer it to you right now. You should think about coming to our gutter summit, because I don't have any safety program stuff built out there yet. And so here's my invite. I know my team would be on board with that, and we'd love to see you at Gutter Summit this year, 2025. Telling people about your app. You could do a speech or something. We could figure that out. So let's make sure all three of you guys are there.
Yeah.
Kevin, tell us a little bit, in the trenches, about how do you strike that right balance between maintaining strict safety protocols and meeting productivity goals and our deadlines. Like, I know that's something you're dealing with, every day right now out there in the field.
Well, I think it goes to a lot of what Mike said, is when you're keeping this information in the minds of the employees, once you get everything set up, so, it's just like any task that you're doing. When you first start out doing something, whether it's window cleaning or gutters or holiday lights, you're kind of putting this whole thing together, and you're never efficient the first few times that you do it. Right. And you're learning how to become more efficient. So every time you do it, you're like, oh, I could do this a little better. I could do that a little better. Oh, if we added this piece of equipment, or if we added this machine, then we can get a lot faster. And so you start building all this stuff up. And then once you have that kind of protocol set up, I'll call it,
yep,
then you're running smoothly. So it's kind of the same thing with safety. When our teams are in the field, they're looking at every job, but they're not looking at it specifically, how fast can I get it done, or how safe can I get it done, or how efficient can I be. They're looking at the whole big picture. So when they see, like we're on a big construction cleanup job at a hospital now, and there's a lot of really tough areas to get to, because, in construction, they never think about how they're going to clean it before they put it all together. And so when we go in and we look at the job site and we look at the job hazard analysis before, it's like, okay, so what do you guys see? Well, there's this here, and we got to figure out how to do that there, and we got to figure out how to do this here. Okay, so we had over the weekend, we had to work over a stairwell. Okay, do we bring in a really tall ladder? Should we do an A-frame? Should we do a scaffold? No, scaffold is the best way to do it. Did it take extra time to set it up? Did we have to bring some stuff in? Yes. But ultimately, then that task went faster, because we were doing it the right way, and everybody was comfortable, and they weren't worried about falling. And the whole process ended up going faster. So when you keep everybody, I talked about the last time how when you have an empowered employee, and you're instructing them or educating them, not just quote unquote training them, that they're going to do more, and they're going to want to do better, and they're ultimately going to be a much, much better employee for you. And that's kind of how we do it. If there's a problem, it's an all stop. And if somebody says, I'm not comfortable with this, or I don't think this is how it should be done, or we need to really consider something else here, then it's an all stop and we figure it out. But the number of times that we actually have to do that is pretty rare. And it's just going through the process, okay, and thinking but not thinking, is my ladder secure? Is this scaffold set up right? Is there anything that's overhead that's going to get in my way, or that I could possibly come in contact with? And it all just kind of works together. So once you build that culture into your company, I think I've seen, me personally, that the safety culture makes people feel better. It makes them want to work for you more, and it makes them want you to be more profitable, because we'll do a safety bonus when we're done with a big job. And we just did one this last week, and everybody's like, wow, that was really nice. We weren't expecting it, and all of a sudden, here's this nice bonus on your check. We looked at the profit. We did the same thing. It's a business. We run the profit and loss, and we look at where we were good, where we were bad, where we come out on profit. All right, let's share 10% of that with the employees. And it really, really goes a long way. And the number one thing that gets brought up with that is, okay, so first of all, there was no accidents. And that's the number one reason that we're giving out this bonus. Second of all, you guys were really efficient. The customer was really happy. And so now here's something extra for you. So building that culture, empowering the employees, having it just be that mindset that it's constantly there. So no matter what they did that day or what happened the night before, they're still coming to work with thinking, having that stuff right at the forefront of their mind.
Yeah, and you know something too, if I could jump in there.
Yeah, 100%.
I tell you, and I'm happy being the bad guy. I'm not always the bad guy with safety, so I don't really care. I got broad shoulders, but I'll say something business wise. I'm a fairly successful business guy as well. And I'll just say something business wise that a lot of entrepreneurs and gutter cleaners and window cleaners and pressure washers, they're not going to like to hear. But the reality is that 90% of mobile contractors out there do not know how to sell at all. And the only way they sell is by price.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah. And so, you know, when the thing is that you have to, and I'm assuming with this audience, I'm assuming that every market has competition in the market, right? There's competition out there. So everybody's trying to, you know, run around and this in my market, there's this and this and this and this. I don't care what it is in the market. I never have cared. I never cared what anybody else was doing. But as always, also with safety specifically, it can be a huge selling point if you'll allow it to. And here's how we use the JHA a lot of times, or we did when I had my company. And I teach guys just about all the time in almost every class. Bring the customer into the problem. The problem is that they want you to get up there on the roof. They want you to blow out the gutters or do whatever. The problem is that there's a safety concern and we need to address it. Now, at most everybody wants to stop right there. They just want to get the customer's check and, you know, it's $125 or $225 or whatever it is, right? And that's it. No, I want to make about $400 on it. And this is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to say, you know, Susie Johnson, we just did a walk of your property. We looked at all the gutters and the things like that. Now, in our JHA, we've identified that there's a fall protection hazard. And, you know, we're trying to be OSHA compliant and we don't want anybody to fall. I certainly don't want my liability insurance affected. And I don't want your homeowner's insurance affected. Whoa. That just brought in a different level of, now I have a homeowner buy-in, right? My homeowner's insurance, what? I'm hiring the contractor. No. You're involved too. Because if one of these guys fall, it's trouble. So now that we've done that and we've educated them in the sales process, it won't matter if I'm a bit higher if you come in the door and you're not addressing that, because she's got it in her mind now. She's wondering, hey, you know, Grant's coming, so he's going to give me my bid at 2:00 today. I wonder if he's going to worry about my homeowner's insurance. And if you don't, she's not going to care. She is not going to care. And so I tell you, we use safety all the time because we educate, we know how to sell, first of all, and we don't sell by price ever.
I think one of the things I heard recently, it really struck me. I've been listening to a lot of business podcasts and different things, but they said, do not sell on price, sell on the outcome. And that is because you're never going to win a price war. Nobody wins in a price war. But the outcome can be a lot of different things, right? Part of it is, are we taking care of your property? Are we taking something off of your plate so that you have that nice, peaceful thing that goes with you, right? It's not about the price. It's not about the specs. It's about that end outcome. And I just recently had someone who was asking me, like, how do I tell a client who is, you know, turned me down because someone else was cheaper? How do I win them back, or what do I do? And I said, well, first of all, don't compromise on your price. That's just a great way of telling them that you overcharged to begin with, or that you don't know your value. You need to come at it from the other point of view. You know, something like, we understand that you may choose to use a different company. However, We train, we have high levels of training for our employees where, we carry high levels of insurance and workers' comp. We make sure that your property is taken care of. And so we have to charge accordingly.
Yeah.
But we understand that you may need to go with a more budget-friendly company. Because then at that point, you've kind of set yourself apart, right? You're like, well, this is why we charge what we do. Not everyone is like us, and that's okay.
No, and there's exactly. There's some customers. I love your budget-friendly comment, because budget-friendly or cheap, just you want the cheapest. There's humans on this planet that don't care about other humans. Let's just be real about it.
Sure.
That flat, plain and simple, just want their roof cleaned off, their gutters cleaned out, and they would pay anyone $60 to go onto their 7-story home with no harnesses, and wouldn't blink an eye until that person hits the floor and the lawsuit hits their insurance company.
Yeah. That's something I've said for years, is that sales is about reducing risk to the customer. And that can be a variety of different things. Sometimes it's the risk of making sure that the quality is right. So a lot of the work that we do is in hospitals. Their risk is that the work isn't done to the quality or to the standards that it needs to be met. And now they have a whole nother set of problems to deal with. But in this case, we're reducing the risk to them potentially for their homeowner's insurance. It can be the same for a commercial property. Their commercial insurance can be affected the same way. So reducing risk has always been a big part of sales, and this would just be another aspect of that.
Kevin, Michael, question for you, and I agree with you 100%, Kevin. How do you get your leadership to be on board with safety, right? I think that in the home service industry, there's several tiers, but let's just call it 2 tiers. There's the truck in the truck owner operator. He is the safety expert. He's the payroll. The whole list. He's everything.
Yep.
And he may or may not choose to lead by example in that. But then there's, let's call it 3. Then there's the middle guy, has 10 to 12 employees. And then, of course, there's the 100 employees and up mega, construction companies. Somewhere in that middle range to the upper range, what is your advice on getting, let's say, your general manager, your field supervisors really bought in on taking the place and taking the charge of safety? Because once the owner backs out and there's other people in place, a lot of things happen that no one knows about.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that, there has to be a really, at that level of business, when I sold my company, we had 16 guys. Mm-hmm. And at that level, leadership has to understand that a catastrophic event means your job.
Yes.
Not that I'm going to fire you. It means we're going to go out of business.
Yes.
Because I can't, if there's a employee that fell last year in a city, and it's costing the company $450,000. Now that's not enough money for a death, but nonetheless, that's what it costs. Which one of your listeners has $450,000 sitting around a bank account that they can stroke a check out for that casualty? And there may be civil on top of that. So, so leadership has to buy in, because it's like, if you're not on board with this, guys, this is our livelihood. We have to, when we roll up in the field, we do a lot of third-party audits, and I'm the hardest on the supervisor, because they good and well know what it's supposed to go on there. The guys are always going to be the guys, right? They're going to slide it anytime they can. But supervision and the supervisors have to be on top of everything.
Correct.
And if they're not, then you got to come down hard on them.
I like this too.
Here's the deal: they're really representing the financial wherewithal of your company out in the field. So as an owner, you got to act right, man, because you got my money. You're messing with my money.
No, you're messing with my money, and sometimes people don't understand that these smaller actions are. And I'll give you an example. You said 450,000, right? Now there's a listener that's going to say, my insurance is paying that. You think I'm okay. You think that, but you don't have an S Corp. You don't have an LLC. You're out here doing a DBA. You know it. And I know it. they're going to take your house and everything. And sure, we're always talking about accidents are accidents. Things happen. It's like David Wyatt. You never would have thought that would happen, right? So it can happen. And I'm watching, and I know you guys are watching. I've seen 5 people hurt on the Christmas installer. That's like, I just became a part of these Christmas installer chats. The gutter chats, never. And it's because people don't share it very much. It's very, very rare that there's an accident. This Christmas light season comes. I join these groups to watch. And I'm seeing hurt person after hurt person after hurt person. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, man, this sucks. But to the point we're saying, let's say you were going to pay out $100,000 or $80,000. Why wouldn't you give your field supervisor or your general manager $100 a week to make sure that he's talking about safety? That's only going to cost you, let's say it's just 50 weeks in the year. Let's minus vacation weeks and stuff. Let's say it's 45 weeks. You actually pay him $100 to make sure that when you pull up, you can't take a picture of any of your guys doing something wrong. Incentivize them financially. That's just something at $50, $500, whatever it is. It's much cheaper, and it's just the right thing to do. Hey, I want you to really, really focus on this. We've never really focused on it before. So you owners out there that are listening, if you never focused on safety before and you're going to start, what you should, to make a big deal about it, understand that you're adding more work to an employee that you've already negotiated a price for, and you haven't asked him to do anything like this for the last 3 years. You're probably going to have to get him some education so he understands safety. And you might need to pay him a little bit extra to run some safety huddles, meetings, etc., so that he doesn't feel like you're just forcing him to do something that's never going to happen anyway. Oh, no one's ever going to get hurt. No one's cut their finger in 9 weeks over here, whatever it is.
I also think integrating a culture of fellowship is really important. So when people start off at our company, we always tell them, like, your families are lending you to us for the day. We have the privilege of having you be here today, and we want to return you in the same shape that you have been lent to us. You're safe. If they know that you're willing to lose a little bit of money because their dignity and their worth and their value is more important than any rich guy's windows, then that is going to engender a loyal employee that you can hold on to. Again, it's part of our fellowship. So it's not just mentorship. It's not just helping them to get to their goals. It's letting them know that their lives are more important than this job is, right? And so when we have a supervisor or when we have someone like that, I like to call it the older sister talk. They're like, these are your siblings, so to speak. You are in charge of their safety. You're the one making sure that they're getting home safe every day. Are they still responsible for themselves? Yes, but you're in charge of making sure that they are doing things right every day because their lives depend on it. That is on your shoulders. It's a lot to put on someone, but they need to know that that is the gravity of what they are holding, and that is part of that position. But if you're treating them that way, they're going to also treat the other employees that are under them that way. And so you just have to keep that culture going all the time. Reward it when you see them doing the right thing. When you see them take that extra time, you're like, hey, I like that. Good job. Always.
Culture is super important. You hit the nail on the head with that because, and we talked about that before, right? Like and you said it, and I've said it a bunch, and I know probably everybody on this call agrees. The most important person is not the customer. Yes, we all know you got to have them. It's your employees. And it's just mind blowing. But when you have a good culture, everybody knows what that looks like. Why? And I think you saw me, Sarah. I grabbed this thing, and you know what this is about, Michael. So I got this just after I went to his funeral. Someone sent this to me, and it's kind of my little timer for my podcast, and it's just always going to be right here with me. And I got sad because, I can think about the guys that I worked with just recently here in Austin at the company that my wife is helping run. And if any of them would have fell and died in front of me, oh my gosh. And it wasn't going to be because I said, hey, we should try this. It was never going to be because of that. And our listeners, you guys have to remember it can happen to anybody. It can happen at any time. And like Michael and Kevin and Sarah are talking about, it's okay to like bring it up every week. Have a 10 or 15-minute meeting around it, regardless if your employees, are slacking off or acting like they're falling asleep in the meeting. That should be a great signal of who you don't want to continue to work at your company. If while they're on your clock in your building, falling asleep during any meeting or rolling their eyes or doing any of that crap, I mean, that's just a great indicator of someone that will never be a leader at your company. It's a good time to let people go. Meetings to me are great indicators of what your employees will look like in 6 months, 90 days, 2 days. If they're not, involved in meetings, regardless of, yes, meetings are mundane. And you guys hit the nail on the head, just keeping it right here, just a fresh cycle, because it becomes a part of a routine, right? Kevin, like, how do you deal with an employee that's like kind of out of compliance? I don't mean you pull up on the job site and the guy's 1 foot off the ladder, 9 stories up, reaching over. Of course, we all know what you do with that guy. But I mean, just something small that you notice and you're like, I'm kind of uncomfortable. How tell our viewers how would you approach that? How would you recommend?
It's an
Like,
old
do you
saying
write them
that,
up right away? Do you kick the ladder out from underneath them? Like, what do you?
well, there's an old saying that punishment rarely gets you the results that you want. And you can apply that to a lot of things. You can apply that to your kids. You can apply that to employees. So really, it then comes into discipline. So but discipline isn't the scolding necessarily, because I want to make sure that it's hitting home, but I also don't want to embarrass somebody. I never want to pull somebody down in front of the team and be like, okay, so let's talk about what you were doing wrong. Again, it's more of that discipline. So, hey, let's talk a little bit. When I pulled up, I saw you on that ladder. Is there anything about that seemed unsafe to you? Is there anything about that we talked about in a JHA or we talked about in a safety meeting that maybe you weren't thinking about? And generally they'll be like, yeah, I know why, I did this or I did that. Okay, so let's just go through it again. And kind of like what Sarah was saying, your life is in my hands. I want you to go home tonight. So let's just talk about it. Now, at some point, if someone's not paying attention, there's going to have to be disciplinary action. But generally speaking, and I've had hundreds of people work for me over the years, if I've got to start the disciplinary process in somebody, generally I'm working them out the door, because everybody that responds well to the discipline typically doesn't get to the punishment part. And then if you do get to the point where you're writing someone up, they should always see it coming. I had an employee years ago, had an incident at one of the jobs. I addressed it. I came back the next day and I was sitting in my truck and they came out to my truck and they said, "You're writing me up, aren't you?" I'm like, "Yeah, you better believe it."
You do it.
Of course I am. Yeah. Oh, I figured. Okay. Well, see, it wasn't a surprise. They knew what was coming because of the consistency of what our standards were, what the procedures were, and what the outcome of non-compliance was. So as long as you have that strictly in there, and one thing that I've said to managers and supervisors for years and years, it was one of the things that I started with. If you think you should say something, say it. Don't just hesitate. Well, I don't want to make them feel bad. I don't want to embarrass them.
I agree.
If you think you should say something, say it. And get that out there, because that's all part of that discipline process.
It's just a conversation, right? It's just a conversation.
It takes a little bit of just the culture of it. I love we talk about all the time with safety, see something, say something. And the reality is that we have to understand too that when we build that culture, we're included. Because I'll guarantee you, if I was working on a job all day long with you, you would catch some safety infractions on me too. That's okay, because we're on a team, right? So hey, we don't do that, or don't, you're getting a little close to the edge, or I
like
remember
that,
being
yeah.
on a roof not too long ago, and I was backing up, explaining something, and like, hey, we don't put the back to the fall. You're exactly right. Thanks for reminding me. And so we all do it. And so just having that say something, and just know that, hey, it'll happen with me too, and I want you to correct me. And again, the ultimate goal is we want everybody going home.
Yep.
Yes, it's the ultimate goal. And coming and people don't have to be like, it's not a secret, guys. It's okay why we want people to go back home. Yes, we care about them. We also want them to come back to work tomorrow. I mean, that's if we can't just make $1,000 off of someone's back one day, we want to be a partner with them in creating revenue for their family, for our family. And that's that whole culture of, like you said, you probably catch some infractions on me when I'm up there. I like working with the team. I don't like working alone. Financially, I like working alone because I don't have to depend or count on anybody, right? And I can create a system, but it's not very safe and it's very tiring. And when you get tired, other things like falling asleep driving back to the office and you slam into something like. So I wanted to kind of end on 2 points really quick. Automobile safety. Who talks about that? What are they talking about? Obviously, there's a company here locally, and I'll just say in South Texas, a roofing and gutter company that had around 16 accidents. Mind you, they have a 35 or 40 fleet of trucks, but that's a lot of accidents. And they can't even barely get insured anymore, and they're going to continue. And I'm just wondering, like, what are they going to do about that? Like, I know what 1 or 2 accidents looks like to an insurance company, and they're accidents, but 15, 16, 17 vehicles in 1 year getting an accident, maybe slow down the lead. Maybe give them less. It's okay. We love dogs. My dogs, I give my dogs a bunch of treats because they're right on the other side of this wall outside. I'm like, go to sleep now. We're going to go live. So anyway, one thing I wanted to talk about, having you guys back, if you wanted to, I think accidents, a lot of people get hurt in accidents in the construction industry, and it comes from being way too tired and being way too overworked. And then a question for you, Michael, if you know, and I'm really excited to have you guys back. I hope we can do this some more and do a little bit of a longer one, because I think I have some really great ideas that we'll be able to discuss. But how do you mitigate legal risks associated with safety, and what steps do you take to protect your business from potential liability claims outside of the fact of just being safe?
Yeah. So I mean, there's 2 pieces to safety. One is the caring about people's lives, and that's first and foremost, right? But the secondary piece of that is once you start bringing on multiple employees, you do have to look at safety from a compliantary piece, right? It is risk management. And so that, the thing is that when you get in trouble, if OSHA shows up on your job, or, and let's just say it's not an injury, but it's a fine, that's an impact to the business, right?
Yeah.
And so what we really have to do at that point, in order to mitigate that as business owners, OSHA has pretty strict guidelines on how these things work, right? They expect the employer to plan the work, provide the necessary equipment, and train. That's what they expect. They know good and well that there's going to be employees go out there and be knuckleheads that day.
Yeah.
But what we want to do, and how we want to protect ourselves, and this is kind of why we built the Safety Advocate Program, was that we want to be able to, if we get in trouble out in the field, we, as an employer, we want to say, wait a minute, yep, Johnny messed up today, and he got the OSHA fine or whatever, but it wasn't the employer's fault. So here's Johnny's training records. Here's the JHA that we sent out with Johnny. Here's the log of weekly safety meetings that Johnny watches every single week, and we have them date stamped in their log. Here's how he signed off on. He signed off on the company employee manual, and he knows that he wasn't supposed to do that today. So if we have those things in order, then what would happen is we would see the OSHA fine probably go away, and it would read employer not liable. That's what we want, right?
Okay.
Employer not liable. So because that way, and again, that's the risk management. And unfortunately, it's the world we live in. But if a serious incident comes up, it is going to be company against them. It is.
It is, yeah.
Let's just be real. It is. I'm going to do everything I can to protect my company, and I'm going to prove all the documents and things. And hopefully I'm a good employer, and I'm doing them for the right reasons. But I'm going to, I'm going to go into risk management to try to deal with the company.
Yeah,
perfect. Do you have some of that set up in your expert safety services along with your app? Is there that like defined as the purpose? It's probably part of your mission statement, right? Like to protect you as a company and the employees. We
built the program. I know exactly what is going to get asked for in an incident, and it's funny because when somebody calls me and says I'm going to get OSHA, OSHA showed up on my job, and I'm like, okay. And so I said, you're probably going to get cited. And I said, just write this down. They're going to send you a letter here in a day or so, and they're going to say, I want this, and this. Yep. Just write these things down. And then it'll be they're always like, can you help me? Maybe. I'm not going to go in the room and look stupid. So if you have the bullets in your gun, I'll go fire them for you. But if you don't, if you're trying to put compliance in place because you got fined after the fact, yeah, good luck with that. Good luck with that,
sure. For sure.
So yeah, that's what it's all built on. I mean, it's all built on, one, keeping employees safe. Number two, checking the compliantary check boxes so that if we do get into a problem, we can mitigate those problems and we can show that the employer is doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Fabulous. Thank you so much for that information. I appreciate you guys. We just touched on a couple of topics today. I don't know if I can get all three of you back sometime after the holidays. Maybe we can do a little walkthrough of the app. So I don't know if that's possible. Is that something you do?
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. If it's half as awesome as Sarah's app, I know the crowd went wild. I think we did it a little too late. The holiday homes, correct? Because season, as you know, the lighting people were already going absolutely crazy. But the feedback already in my DM is like, okay, I know what I'm doing next year. So we have a lot to talk about right there. We want to keep them safe. We want to help them make money. We want to help them understand retention. Employees are looking for what your priorities are as an owner. They want to know that you want to keep them safe. They want to know that there's a little profit sharing possibility through safety, right? And through accountability. And that is the beginning of creating a really good company culture. It's not just handing out gifts and stuff like that or saying thank you in passing. It's actually showing you care. So Kevin, Sarah, Michael, I can't wait to do this again. If I don't talk to any of you guys before Christmas, I hope you have an absolutely Merry Christmas. Stay safe out there. And thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Okay.
Absolutely.